Meghan Ottolini here at the Boston Herald with political reporter Chris Cassidy. Chris, thanks for joining me.
You bet.
So we just came out of seeing James Comey's, I think we clocked in now at 2.5-hour testimony.
About that, yeah.
About 2.5 hours. I want to start out by talking to you about what Comey said close to the top. He said that the Trump administration lied about him in order to defame him. Can you talk about that and the implications of that bold statement?
Yeah, one of the things the president said after Comey's firing, he said he was fired because of the Russian investigation, but also talked about how the FBI was in disarray under FBI Director Comey. Comey strongly disagreed with that. He called that lies, plain and simple. He feels he would still be the director of the FBI today, had it not been for the conversations with President Trump. And this was, of course, a highly anticipated hearing. There are certainly winners and losers, but this is something that's going to be talked about on Capitol Hill for probably days, weeks, maybe even months to come.
Can we talk about those winners and losers? Is the Trump camp feeling vindicated by any of the points that Comey made today?
Yeah, even yesterday when some of Comey's testimony became public, Trump's personal attorney said the president did feel vindicated that there was that the president was not currently under investigation by the FBI, and that's something that Comey reiterated again under oath, saying that as of the time he left office, was fired on May 9th, Trump was not under investigation at all. So in that sense, the Trump people probably feel pretty good about that. At least there was really nothing that seemed to concretely point to any kind of, there was no smoking gun or anything saying that the president absolutely broke the law. There'll certainly be a lot of speculation and talk, and of course the investigation continues. But you know, the Trump administration can't feel great about this either, because we're still talking about this. And it certainly raises some questions about the president's judgment in terms of meeting alone with the FBI director. This is, you know, the White House and the FBI are supposed to be two separate entities. Comey pointed out that he only really had 2 conversations with President Obama and only spoken with President Bush once, but yet he had 9 conversations with President Trump.
That's very unusual. What do you think is the explanation, or what has the speculation been around the explanation for why it seems like Trump was constantly talking to Comey and often saying, "You're doing a great job," according to Comey's testimony?
Yeah, I mean, Comey's making the case that, you know, he feels that Trump was trying to create a patronage relationship and basically say, "I'm going to make sure you keep your job, but you got to do something for me." Republicans and Trump supporters would say, "Is it really so unusual that the president merely wanted to get out the fact that he's not under investigation?" Because Trump had put some pressure on Comey to say publicly that he's not under investigation. So you saw Marco Rubio, some of his questions basically saying, "Hey, what's the big deal? Trump just wanted to make sure people knew he was in the clear. Why could you not do that?" Comey argued, you know, once you say that somebody's not under investigation, then if they do become under investigation later down the road, you then have to publicly go out and say that. Reminds people of that Clinton investigation during the summer.
Right. Now, another thing that came out was Comey saying that he orchestrated leaks of these memos in order to prompt a special investigation, a special counsel. That's pretty shocking.
Yeah, absolutely. It came under some of the questioning from Susan Collins, the senator from Maine, that James Comey did, of course, keep these memos. He felt compelled to do that under some of the conversations that he was having with Trump, but that also he gave them to a friend of his, a law professor at Columbia University, who then turned it over to a reporter. Comey says he felt that once Trump started tweeting about there might be, you know, he might have taped their conversations, Comey felt he's got to get his account out there as well. And so there the existence of these memos that the news organization, the New York Times, has, but it's unclear. I mean, certainly the Senate Intelligence Committee would like to see them as well. But that was one of the revelations that came out, that Comey did leak some of these memos. And I guess it would raise questions about, you know, did he leak anything else to other reporters? And it's also interesting that he did take down a couple of the news organizations who had published previous stories citing intelligence sources, basically saying, you know, those people that know classified information don't go around telling reporters about it, and those that do go around telling reporters about it aren't necessarily those people in the know, and the people like Comey and others don't really correct the record when, you know, organizations publish some of these stories. So the news media took a little bit of a hit today as well.
So we did just hear a testimony, but it is feeling a little bit like he said. If these tapes exist and they came out, what would the implications of that be? I mean, you have Trump saying, I'm going to release the tapes, and Comey saying, I think he said, Lordy, I hope there are tapes.
Yeah, Comey seemed absolutely not concerned at all. In fact, I think he might feel relieved if there were tapes and if they got released, because I think he feels that that would back up his account of what's going on. The White House still is not confirming that there actually are these tapes. This may come down to Robert Mueller, who's now heading this investigation, having a conversation with President Trump under oath. And if that happens, the president has to be honest. He can't, he can't spin things a certain way. It's got to be just the facts. If it comes down to that point, it is going to come down to Comey's word versus the president's word. And politically, it'll be interesting to see what the public thinks of all this. I mean, this was, a lot of people were at work today. They may not have watched every moment of it, but they're certainly watching the highlights of it. They're going to form an opinion. I think it's critical for President Trump to come out, or some of his surrogates to come out and get the president's argument out there. What is his account of this? How does he rebut some of the things that Comey says? I'm sure they're talking about that in the White House right now, but it wouldn't hurt President Trump, I don't think, to have a news conference, take as many questions as you can, and try to put the issue to rest as best you might be able to.
Are President Trump's adversaries, are any of them disappointed by the lack of a smoking gun? A lot of the tough questions went unanswered simply because the former director said, that's under investigation. I can't talk about that in this setting, this very public setting. Do you think that there's any disappointment that there wasn't any gotcha moment, obstruction of justice? Yeah,
I mean, especially the way that this hearing was hyped up. You saw a lot of Democrats essentially ask Comey, do you think that the president committed obstruction of justice? And Comey saying, I'm not going there, that's not up to me. Comey was pretty measured. He did give out his accounts, but he didn't necessarily, it didn't appear, although some critics might disagree, it didn't appear as though he was trying to get the president impeached. He seemed to back down when he felt he wasn't in a position to answer certain questions. But yes, there wasn't necessarily that sort of gotcha moment that you would think bring down the White House automatically. So, Republicans might start building the case pretty soon that, hey, we've been talking about this for months and months. It's starting to become a distraction. Let's have these investigations take place. But at some point, you got to either figure out if there's enough to go forward or if there's nothing there, and then just put it to rest and go on with some of the other issues that the White House, the agenda of the White House and congressional Republicans want to get through.
Right, and I bet President Trump would be pleased if it was put to rest.
You bet.
So thank you so much for speaking with me, Chris, and for more information on this whole matter and the rest of the Trump presidency, be sure to follow Chris Cassidy on BostonHerald.com.